I hope that everybody has read, and if they didn't, I want to describe what I read in the New York Times last Sunday. The title of the article was, "An Israeli Physician Saves Sinwar, who is the head of Hamas's life 20 years ago." So the story is this. This Dr. Bitan, who is stationed in Israel, in a prison in Israel, becomes friendly with some of the inmates. And one of the inmates is a man by the name of Sinwar. He goes to the jail every day. They become friends. He gets in the head with him, and he's really trying to figure out, he wants to see the side of where this hatred is coming from. This is 20 years ago. He goes to the jail one day and he sees that Sinwar is acting disoriented. He forgets his name. He starts to fall. And he went into high gear. This Dr. Pitan goes into high gear and literally says, I got to get Sinwar out of jail. I got to get him to a hospital because something's wrong with his brain. They helicopter him to this hospital and they treat him. An Israeli hospital, an Israeli Jewish doctor operates on Sinwar. He's diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor. They save his life. Sinwar wakes up after surgery and says, thank you, doctor. Thank you. You saved my life. I owe you. You fast forward 20 years, October 7th. Dr. Bitan is out of town. His daughter calls and says, Dad, where are you? Where are you? They're attacking. And Dr. Bitan says, I knew at that moment, I knew who was responsible, because in his heart, he knew the day that he saved Sinwar's life, that this man was dangerous, that this is the man that one day, even though he saved his life, many, many more people would be killed. So unfortunately, on October 7th, Dr. Bitan's grandmother was taken hostage. She was later released. And his nephew, 36 years old, died. So this is what we call humanistic, the medical world. These heroes, these doctors, they're human. They will treat anybody. They treated the head of Hamas's life. Unfortunately, this doctor lost his family, and this is how you describe the Israeli doctors. Medicine is blind. It is blind. They will treat anybody. They take an oath and they live by that oath. What was your original reaction? What was your first reaction?
The first reaction was basically came before. This was the reaction to October 7th. I was at home, calling everybody in Israel, trying to understand what's going on, hooked to the news. And then I fell upon a Facebook post by a good friend of mine who's also an OBGYN currently in the United States, Adi Kogan, who's basically calling for any volunteers. And I immediately called her and joined the effort. We quickly moved in order to organize and understand the need in Israel. I think that was the hardest thing to do, because everyone was in a state of shock. And everybody was working tediously from previous knowledge and experience in the Israeli system in times of crisis and emergency. I knew it's going to be hard to get information. So that's what we did. And on the other side, we started to group and understand what we can do over here. I think that was the initial response.
And what was your family's reaction?
Well, my family was a little bit, not a little bit. It was we were all in shock. We were all, a little bit in a state of awe. I wanted to immediately go and help. I am an Israeli IDF veteran. I served as a physician in the military. I served as a surgeon in the Israeli health system before. So my gut feeling was go now. But then as things evolved, I understood that I have a more important role over here to organize and help moving this amazing project forward.
It is an amazing project. And did you have any idea when you would be returning? When you went?
Well, when I already went, it was a little bit further down after October 7th. It was for planned time, every time for like 2 weeks. I wanted to stay more,
Yeah.
but our life doesn't allow us bigger time span. But every minute there counted.
Every minute. And I know you did know you were going to an active war zone. Like, how far from the conflict were you? Like, just describe to us.
Well, my first visit, I was basically on the border near Gaza several times. As an ex-military, it doesn't do me much. I've been there many times before. But the mood is different. The atmosphere is different, and it's like casting a veil on you and on your mood and on everything, because it looks a bit dissociative from the reality that you are familiar with in Israel. Israel is a happy place, a vibrant place, energetic place. You see it on people. You feel it. You feel it from the public, and that disappeared when I came back after October 7th.
It's life-changing. I know that particularly in Israel, the hospitals there, the physicians treat everybody. You treat Arabs, Christians, Israel, everybody. Do you think any Palestinian patients from Gaza may have come in? Did you treat them, possibly?
From knowledge and from speaking with, from reading the press and also speaking with my friends, Gaza civilians are still being treated in Israeli hospitals and getting the best care they can. I mean, so many times I have witnessed and treated, bed next to a bed, a victim of a terrorist act and a terrorist.
Oh my God.
Yes. We've seen that many times. And you see staff with opposite political opinions treating them with the same compassion and respect to human lives. And I think I'm proud to be part of a nation that it's part of our values, and part of a health system that it's part of our values. That's what we take pride in.
The whole world has to know this. The whole world has to know this. When you become a doctor, I know you take a Hippocratic oath, and the oath is to promise to treat all patients with competence, integrity, and commitment. I don't know if there was an article that came out in the New York Times. I discussed it at the board meeting, and it leaves me it's kept me up at night. When I read this article about this doctor, this hero, who 20 years ago, his name is Dr. Bitan. I'm sure I just want our audience to hear this story. I'm trying to sum it up. That 20 years ago, he was in charge of the jail where the Hamas leader, Sinwar, was stationed. And he was imprisoned in this jail. This Israeli doctor goes to the jail every day. He's becoming friends with the Hamas leader, and he's breaking bread, and they become friends. And he goes to the jail one day, and he sees the guy's disoriented. He's like a little out of it. So he says, something's wrong. I know something's wrong. He himself says, I'm going to have to get him care. They helicopter him to an Israeli hospital, which you're probably treating right now. You're operating in this hospital, Sukkot, right?
I did my residency in this hospital.
Okay, so this Israeli doctor sends the Hamas leader, Sinwar, to a jail. He's diagnosed, to hospital. He's diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor. They treat him. They cure him. He saves his life. October 7th comes, and this doctor gets called from his daughter, and the daughter says, Dad, look what's going on. Do you know what's going on? And Dr. Bitan says in his heart, and you read it in the article, I knew at that moment, who was responsible for this, because I saw him, and I saw that he was a sociopath, and I saw that he could murder people with his own hands. But you know what? I'm a doctor, and I had to save his life, and I did. I regret it, because unfortunately his grandmother and his nephew were taken hostage. His grandmother was released, but the nephew died. How do you fathom that? This is a Hippocratic oath beyond anything that anybody could imagine. As physicians, can you talk to me about that? Tell us about that.
So it goes both to the oath that we take. By the way, Israeli doctors take a slightly different oath with the same meaning, the Maimonides oath, but it's the same. And I think it goes to our core values and how we want to live this life. And eventually, both to Israelis and Jews, that's what differentiates us from our enemies. We value life and we act upon it. We don't just say it, we act upon it. And this is how we see the world, and this is how we want to change the world. We value life and we do the best that we can outside of the battlefield. And also inside the battlefield, as a combat physician, I treated my soldiers, I treated the enemy too, once the fight is over. These are the core values that drives me in my profession. This is how I educate my kids, my residents, and this is how we see stuff. We see it beyond the definitions, all the layers that we put in our lives. The core values, human life is sacred. As simple as that.
And unfortunately, people are not talking about it enough. We could all make money in our life. We can all do everything that on this earth. But at the end of the day, we all need physicians. And you guys are the heroes. You're the heroes of today. I believe that. I'm so grateful for what you do and how hard you work. Let's talk about the hospitals in Gaza. There are 36 hospitals serving 2 million people. Do you think these hospitals are really used? I mean, we're reading this on the news. We're not sure what to believe, what news to even read. But do you think these hospitals were built and there really are command centers? What's your thoughts on that? You've seen it. You know you're there.
Well, first of all, I'm just reading the news and it's just my personal interpretation. I don't sit on, intelligence committees or in the Gazan health ministry. 36 hospitals is a lot. I would say they need more health care than because of their state. The poorer the population, the more health care you need to give them. We see it all the time, and they need it. Their conditions are poorer and they need more health care. And when they get those contributions, it's easier to whoever donates to the Gazan to give it for a medical facility. But we also know that these facilities are being used very shrewdly and wisely by Hamas as their command centers. And all the tunnels are leading over there. And this is how they integrate into the medical system and use it and abuse it towards their own goals.
And does everybody get the same care? Because I read an article also that just 10% of the victims that are injured are even getting the care in these hospitals. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know personally, but I would not be surprised if the care is differential. Is not equal at that sense.
So going back to the people that you treat, I mean, you did say that you treat Palestinians. Do you think they appreciate how much you're helping them? What's the dialogue like? I
mean, look, they're human beings. They're very appreciative. Mm-hmm. But I think they're also in survival mode. So they have to basically decide who their loyalty goes to eventually when they make their choices in life. When you speak with them one-on-one, they're very loyal, but they're very thankful. But you can also see when you speak with them how deep is the indoctrination of hate towards the Jews, the Israelis. It's embedded very, very deep. And they do it from a very young age, and you see it. I had kids that I treated with burns that cursed me, spat on me.
Oh my God! And you still treat them.
And you understand that, of course, it's a result of education. education is a very, very, very powerful tool. And I got live demonstrations for it, and we still get it every day.
Just remarkable. I know it's a tough comparison, but as a layperson who's not a physician, when I think about COVID in the United States, how everybody was under such stress, and the doctors, particularly, every day they didn't know they had to wear masks, and people were dying. Was the stress level when you were there similar to that? Like, can you just describe so we can get a feel what it was like on the stress level as a physician when you were treating these patients?
Well, at the point when I reached there, which was like a couple of months later, the stress level is really apparent by seeing people who are basically down. They're a bit depressed. They're a bit. You can see a little bit of apathy, a little bit like they don't care, or they just don't know what they're gonna do, and it's the way they greet you when you say hello. They say, well, considering the circumstances, you can say it's a good day. And it's embedded in the daily conversations that you have with people. As I told you before, it's like a gray veil that just falls on everybody. And it appears, from looking at the data in Israel, you can see more and more stress-related or depression-related diseases. You see higher rates of cardiac events and mental institutionalizations, and so on and so forth. And people get more sick in general.
So
it definitely has a role.
So when you were there, you also spoke to the civilians, and what's that conversation like outside the hospital? Is it also very dark? Everybody's just in an apathetic state because of this trauma?
It's the trauma, but more than that, it's the lack of direction. They don't know that the future is uncertain. Mm-hmm. They don't know where they're going, and it affects them. The uncertainty is a major factor in the civilians' mood these days. They can't plan, or the planning is like written on ice. And it's pretty frustrating.
It's so frustrating. So I opened this, I got a little tongue-tied because I'm just very emotional about this. What you guys have done is just, it brings tears to my eyes because you put your lives on the line. You went, you left your families, you saved not just Israelis and, as we said, Palestinians, Arabs, so many people. I want you to describe to us, better than I did, what the mission was. I know it was a threefold. It was the emergency rooms, it was the general surgeries that had to go on, and also the ambulances. Well, don't usually have doctors because I guess as fast as you treat them is the cure rate. So can you just take us through what that mission was more eloquently than I did?
So what we did is basically we formed an organization ad hoc. We call it the Israeli-U.S. Doc Aid. And with the generous help and support of the AJCF and Jack, we managed basically to create a volunteering mission expedition that concentrated on three major arms. One arm is what Dr. Greenwald is going to talk about. It's Miluim. It's the emergency medicine support to Israel. Israel has a very young emergency medicine program, and Arian is like an amazing group. Come there, they support, they enrich, they develop this very important specialty in Israel, and that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to leave the rest to Ari. Okay. The second arm is the EMS arm, the Emergency Medical Services that Magen David Adom is responsible in Israel for, Magen David Adom and Hatzola. And there we basically had volunteer doctors that came in, staffed ambulances and EMS services in Israel. It's a very, very important, significant upgrade for an ambulance, because the presence of a physician on the ambulance can change the course of treatment. And several doctors who volunteered there found themselves in terrorist attacks, sites where they had to treat wounded persons in the field. So we were very happy and proud that we can contribute to that as well. And I'm sure it had a significant impact on the level of care that MADA, the Magen David Adom, could provide. The third arm was the hospitals and basically specialists or specialty physician roles in the hospitals, general surgeons, vascular surgeons, anesthesiologists, pediatricians, so on and so forth. As you said in the beginning, 30% of the medical staff in the Israeli civilian healthcare system are being recruited once you get a war or emergency situation. So they're lacking 30% of their staff. Wow. While they are basically going and serving in the military as physicians. We wanted to address this and provide a little support in that sense, and we were successful in getting something like I would say close to 100 doctors who filled in positions in different specialties in different hospitals across Israel, and that's it. One other thing that, besides the professional knowledge and help that these doctors provided, I think it provided a lot of mental and social support. It showed international support in the healthcare system. You're not alone. We are here to help you. We support you, and I think this thing is the added value to our little project. Not just coming and staffing a position. It's the long-term connection. Is the mental support to say, like, you're important. We want this to continue and succeed. We are with you in your darkest hour.
So I do want to hear from Ari, but in the beginning, I think you said that you also were an IDF soldier. Is that correct? So
I served in the military medical program. I enlisted as a doctor.
Amazing. Can you just spend a minute telling us about that? Because how do they're constantly going, the stress. These kids are 17, 18, 19 years old. They're watching their friends get killed. They're in these boots. They're protecting the democracy. I think the IDF soldiers are protecting democracy around the world, and we're getting a bad rap. I don't understand how one country could be attacked and we're still defending ourselves after being attacked. So can you tell us from your eyes what it was like when you were an IDF soldier, and from that point of view?
So, as I guess you all know, the IDF, the Israel Defense Force, was visioned by David Ben-Gurion as the melting pot of the Israeli society. And in many eyes today, although it's being scrutinized and criticized, and it doesn't serve not the whole population serves, and so on and so forth, it still is. And it's a very efficient organization in basically providing or educating the soldiers and the people in it about those values. And I was very proud to be part of it and serve in it. Those 18 and 19-year-old kids are amazing. They are full of motivation. They're very dedicated and devoted. And it amazed me one time after the other. They and the army takes them, train them, and put in their hearts their values, those core values that sustained there. They're all very smart. I had soldiers under my command and officers around me, and I came there from med school. You would say, like, you came from an academic place. I learned more in the IDF about life and how to become a good and productive adult and a professional than I learned in med school.
They're putting their lives on the line every single day, and they're doing it they're brave, and we all have to do more. Ari, you want to take us through the emergency medical part? Thank Thank you for coming with us here today.
Sure, absolutely. And just to add a little bit of context to what Itay had shared and the reaction, I think that was felt by really the whole international medical community in the wake of October 7th. We as physicians, we are committed to helping people in a time of need. That's a part of who we are. That's part of why we are doing what we're doing. And those of us with strong connections and ties and supporters of Israel after October 7th felt a tremendous need and pull towards Israel, as counterintuitive as that sounds when it's in the middle of a war. And the Ministry of Health put out a call for volunteers. And just to show the degree of support that's out there, 7,000 physicians signed up. And we're willing
from all
to
over
get
the
on
world.
a plane, all over the world. We're willing to get on a plane. We're talking Jewish, not Jewish, from dozens of countries. We're ready to get on a plane and go over to Israel to help. And so I think in this regard, our, Itay and our interest to go over and help is not necessarily unique. And I think it shows the degree of how much people are drawn to wanting to be a positive light in the face of tremendous darkness. And the challenge that was faced was how to plug in these people who are ready and willing to help with places that could use their help and services in a meaningful way. And you can imagine a system that's already, short on staff, and then they're 30% more short on staff. And the people who are working in this community, you can imagine, all know people who were affected by October 7th and the attacks. They all have children, spouses, family members who are actively serving in a combat zone, and they're going on about their day-to-day lives. This is a tremendous amount of stress. And the fact that they could do that demonstrates a tremendous amount of resilience, which is really prevalent throughout Israeli society. But nevertheless, that's a hard condition to operate under, nevertheless, to start thinking about where we can get help from. And so this is really where these initiatives were able to fill a meaningful void, because there was all of this volunteerism and interest in helping and tremendous need on the ground, but plugging in the volunteers with the need is much more challenging than it sounds, especially when you're dealing with an international effort and facilitating licenses and all of these things. And so the emergency medicine community and that I represent came together shortly thereafter from a bunch of emergency physicians like myself who just said, we're not waiting for this process to work itself out. We're going to buy a ticket and we're going to show up. So I showed up in Israel 4 days after October 7th, after reaching out to some colleagues and friends that I knew there. And I said, I'm showing up.
What kind of physician are you? Tell us what kind of doctor you are.
So I'm an emergency physician. I'm from Toronto, Canada. And I'm an emergency physician, and I had some ties to the Israeli medical community from prior years where I had gone to support their educational development. As Itay mentioned, emergency medicine in Israel is a relatively young specialty. It's only 14 years old compared to the United States and Canada, where it's 40 to 50 years old. And so there's a lot of need for educational support and development, which the leaders in the emergency medicine community in Israel are doing. But it needs a lot more support. And this was before the war broke out. And now the war breaks out, they're already short-staffed, and now they're even more short-staffed, and they have all this tremendous need.
So you wrap up your life. 4 days later, you pack up, you don't know when you're coming home, you just get on a plane, you tell your family you're going to do, putting your life at risk, and take us through the first day.
The first day was probably the most proud day of my professional career.
Wow.
I've been an emergency physician and an educator for over 12 years. And showing up there and getting a badge to work in an Israeli hospital and to stand arm in arm with the people of Israel. And we're talking about, like you mentioned, Israelis, Arabs, Christians, Muslims. These are the people that are staffing the medical system there, treating the diverse population that is Israel. If you go into any emergency department waiting room in Israel across the country, you will see coexistence, and you will see people in need getting treatment and care from people who are providing it. And everybody comes from a different place, a different country, a different background, different culture. And it's really an example of what a future can look like. And so showing up there and getting my badge and knowing that it was an incredibly emotional time for I think all of us. But to be there on the ground and knowing that I'm there to support in whatever way that I can, for me was tremendously meaningful. And like Itay had said, you think about what these people are going through, and just to know that there are people on the other side of the world that are complete strangers, but they're showing up and they're going to be there to help.
Interrupt you a second so we could understand this graphically. So you show up, and you're an ER doc. Which hospital did you go to?
So I went to a hospital called Shamir Medical Center. It's in the center. Of Israel, and their department was about 40% short of staff when I showed up, and so you had resident staff working extra long shifts, extra night shifts.
How far from Gaza is it?
So this is about 50 to 60 kilometers from Gaza. It's not necessarily on the front line of the southern front, but they received several. Airport, helicopter victims from October 7th. I think they treated about 200 in that first week, as well as soldiers.
Wow. So you were trying to save lives of these people. Just incredible. So tell the world. We're going to get this out as much as we can. What can people like me and anybody listening to this, what can they do?
I think we're all struggling with that question. I think we're all struggling with this question of there's so much negativity out there. There's so much misrepresentation out there. There's so much animosity out there. There's so much conflict out there. And one reaction is to get completely lost in all of that and to try to just know about it all, but then get stuck in this very negative space. And I think the alternative approach is to counter all of that with light. And it sounds cheesy, but you've seen tremendous responses from people who have dug deep to try to put positivity out in the air. And I'm not saying this in an airy-fairy kind of way. You have the organization like AJCF, right? So they're not physicians. They couldn't go there on the ground to help, but they raised funds to be able to support physicians who are willing to go there, but needed help to get there and to support that. There are tremendous needs in Israel across the civilian population. You have an entire population that has gone through tremendous trauma, that are still actively fighting a war, and there's refugees. There's tremendous needs, and so I think everybody can look deep and say, what can I do? What are my unique skills? What's my circle of influence that I have? And how can I be a positive impact within that circle of influence to bring my unique skill set and the relationships that I have to be able to do something positive in the face of all that darkness? And I think when we do that, we feel tremendous. It's therapeutic, but a little bit of light can counter so much darkness.
Brianne, you want to just spend a moment? Thank you for what you're doing, because we have this big gala coming up next week on June 4th where we're going to be honoring these doctors. And I think that is a great way to get the word out, because at the end of the day, we all need doctors. And you're saying doesn't matter race, religion, color, you're all treating everybody. Tell us about the event and how can we find out, how do we get this out, and where do people donate?
Sure. So thank you all for being here. Suzanne, thank you for having us. Ari and Itay, thank you for everything that you do. In addition to our event, so we will be having, as Suzanne, a panel regarding this initiative. It will be on June 4th at Chelsea Piers. Everybody can go to ajcfus.org to learn more about our organization, as well as to learn about the gala, /gala. With that URL is where you can learn about the specific gala. We have some incredible honorees. And I think just building on what you were just saying, Ari, in this whole conversation, so much of the theme of the gala and what we're looking for is how do we move forward? How do we find the light despite the darkness? And as Ari very perfectly put, just a little bit of light can bring up the darkness, but it takes a lot of darkness to take out the light, right? So that is really the idea that we're moving forward with the gala. And we have a lot of representations of exactly this, right? So here we have this catastrophic event of October 7th, and yet we have in its wake a beautiful movement of people coming together and working side by side, regardless of race, religion, color, beliefs. And we can move from that place to connect and have unity and do good in the world. So a lot of also Jack Simone and I were very much involved in organizing the operational elements of this initiative even prior to the gala, since I believe it was like October 17th that came across our desks, possibly even a little earlier. And that has been something that we felt we could, as American Jews, but also just as American humans, support people in need and support people who need our help and attention. So I really think that's also a lot in the ethos of the Auschwitz Jewish Center Foundation, where we're using lessons of the past and the horrors that we as a humanity have faced to do better, to see how we can move forward as a humanity, to be a little more kind, have a little more understanding, and see how, yeah, we can make the world a better place. I know it sounds cheesy also. It sounds so cliche, but it really is.
It's not cheesy. These physicians are saving lives. They're saving lives of all kind. We need to take that article about that doctor that saved Sinwar's life and go viral with it. I mean, that is, it's monumental. This man saved the head of Hamas's life, diagnosed him with a brain tumor, saved his life 20 years ago, got him out of prison, and now he kills his family? I mean, you can't.
Well, even Itay, weren't you at Soroka when another Hamas leader's sister was treated in the ICU? I believe this was also during the war, and you know, I saw maybe 2 articles.
Ismail Hania. I was not there specifically at that time, but yeah, we treat the Israeli health system treats Palestinians all the time, every time. Do not discriminate, and that's it. I want to add to what Ari said regarding what we need to do, to your question on my version. And I think that at this time, everyone who supports the cause and the values of what we represent should speak, at least. I think that my message is, do not stay silent. We have to act, stay, support. If it starts from a simple post to being active in these types of organizations and movement, I think that there is, as we all know, a battle that goes on. It goes on and on. It's on different fields and different aspects, and people are getting confused, especially those who are not involved. And we have to be active. We have to raise say it, raise the point. Very important. One more little thing that I wanted to say is that I think this is a great example of what we did, is that a lot of people and organizations came together and worked together to make it happen. We have this beautiful organization of the AJCF. Without it, it will not happen. The connection was made with the U.S. Israel Economic Mission that connected everything together. We had and that's just 2 examples. So many people who came together. It was beautiful. It was really, really emotional for me, at least, to see it happening. I was like thinking about it every time and getting goosebumps. So these are the types of things that we need to do.
And we have to get the word out, because the PR needs to be much better. So I want to thank you all for participating. We're going to send this to everybody that we know. We'll send it to you. You should repost it. Again, the gala is next week, and it's going to be www.ajcf.org if people want to donate. And thank you so much for what you do, and we're going to go viral with this. Thank you. Thanks for coming on the Miller Report.
Thank you, Suzanne.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.